G'day Art Snackers, my name is James and welcome back to another month of ArtSnacks Box Freestyle, where we take the supplies from the August 2022 ArtSnacks Plus box, experiment with them to within an inch of their lives, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, create a masterpiece for the hashtag ArtSnacks Challenge. My fun fact for today is back to school time is my favorite time of year, which I know is kind of technically more July in the States, and in Australia it's January, so we're all over the place with this fact, but it was my favorite time of year for obvious reasons. I love art supplies and stationery, and I would always try and find a way to finesse a completely new set of pencils every year, but the fun fact being I loved them so much I wouldn't use them because I wanted them to stay pristine, especially if they were Derwents and I got to keep them in that little metal tin. So don't be like me, use all of your good art supplies. But there you go, a bit more about me. Let's get into the box and see what we have to play with today. Here is the August 2022 ArtSnacks Plus box. Here's everything inside. Let's unwrap that little green burrito. Take a closer look at what we'll be playing with today. First up in the Plus box, we have the Grumbucker Hidden Wire Mixed Media Sketchbook, 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches. And in the ArtSnacks Plus box, we also have the Copic Multi-Liners, a broad black set of 4. We have an Alumicolor 6-inch Common Man 3-sided pocket ruler. I got this lovely brass color. And 2 Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer Magnus watercolor pencils. I have 121 Pale Geranium Lake and 109 Dark Chrome Yellow. A Sakura Pigma Micron pen, I got the size 02, and an Alvin Draft Tech mechanical pencil, I have 0.5 millimeters. We have our sticker and our snack. Let's set everything up and get to playing. As I test out the art supplies for this month, I'll just give you some of my first thoughts on them. I have used some of these things before, like I've used a mechanical pencil before, but it's always good to note like the smudgeability, the erasability of some of these different types of graphite and paper combos. This worked really well. This actually erased really nicely. I use the smudging just in case I want to shade or get some kind of depth and really soft shadows, but with mechanical pencils in particular, I would more likely shade with hatching or cross-hatching rather than blending, like pencil blending and smudging. So that's just something that I do and thought I'd share with you. I also tested the Copic Multi-Liners. They are waterproof once they're dry, but there is a bit of open time with the pens that really lay down a lot of ink, like those brush pens at the bottom. I've never used a Copic Multi-Liner brush pen before, and what I can say is the Copic Multi-Liners, they're really nice. They're a super rich black, and so it's really nice to have brush pens with that super rich black. I only have a few that I feel like are as deep and rich as that black is. So I know that's important for some people. I thought I'd mention that. The Magnus watercolor pencils, it's a really nice feeling to have a really big chunky pencil. I don't think I've used a big thick pencil like that since I was in kindergarten or something, but it was really nice. I think I'm interested in that. In pencil feel, it's a real thing. We kind of prefer art supplies that are, I mean, it's not really ergonomic, but have that interesting feel, that nice feel. Sometimes we like the weight of a really heavy pen because it feels a little bit more luxurious, or we like the kind of barrel of a say. I have actually used pens before that had hexagonal barrels, and it really irritated my finger because I just pressed really hard. So I guess all of that to say, has a good pencil feel to me. I did enjoy those. They do re-wet really nicely for a watercolor pencil. Most of the texture did scrub away, and I tried re-wetting it once the pencil was on the paper. I tried dipping the pencil in water. Wouldn't recommend dipping the whole thing in water like I do. I get a little crazy with it, but if you just dip the tip in water, you'll get a really nice creamy effect with the watercolor pencil. And then you can also lay the water on the page and run through it. I tried doing that with the Copic Multi-Liners as well. Since the brush pens are a little easier to bleed the ink out of, it doesn't work as well with the pens, like the thinner pens. I'll show you here. There is a touch of an ink bleed, and it's more of a controlled effect, but the water will really kind of run that ink out quickly, and then you kind of have to scrub your pen off to the side to get it flowing again. None of this will ruin your pen. It is just water. It'll mix with the ink just fine, but it will kind of dry it out a little bit or kind of suck the ink out, so you may have to just kind of restart your pen on a scrap piece of paper next to you. But the brush pens do tend to bleed the ink out much more effectively, so I tried that with those and got a really nice effect. Also, those ink bleeds really depend on how much water you've got on the paper, so that's just something to note if you are playing with them. Do a whole bunch of testing, see how saturated the paper needs to be to get the effect you want. If it's too wet, it'll bleed and feather too much, and you won't be left with any of that good ink texture. If it's not wet enough, it'll just kind of look like a bit of a fuzzy line, which is okay too. That's really effective for some things, but I really do love an ink bleed technique. At the top of my page, I just did a few little doodles thinking about what I might want to do for my ArtSnacks challenge. I had the ruler and it made me think that I should probably tackle perspective. Terrible idea, can't wait to show you what happens. But we'll get into that in a second. Here is my page of swatching and experimentation. So, for this month's Box Freestyle ArtSnacks Challenge, I have decided I will not be finishing it. Sorry to ArtSnacks. If you're seeing this video, the video's made it through. We've managed to game the system, and I've decided I'm not going to finish. Well, I am going to finish. I'm reframing how I think about art and what it is to present something, as a finished work. And the value between a finished work and the ideas that go into it, the sketches, the ideation, all of the prep and process that you have, and what constitutes art that's worth being shown and displayed and submitted, and what is art of the same value. Is it okay to call your sketches that you really love because they took you to that final destination? Is it okay to give them as much weight and gravitas as the finished piece? Now, I'm not going to get into a dissertation on what I really think about it, my personal opinion, but what I do hope this achieves by putting this in front of you today is that I hope you feel like it is still worth sharing all of your process, even if you don't get to a completely finished, rendered, cleaned up version of whatever ideas were sparking in your head when you opened the box and you saw all the art supplies and you thought, I'm going to make something for the ArtSnacks challenge. Because there's a certain type of pressure you put on yourself when you go to finish something. I know I certainly do. There's a certain expectation on me that it will display the most amount of skill that I've got, that it will, really utilize everything in a really special way, that it'll look clean, or at least like cleanly rendered in whatever, style that I've chosen to finish it in. And so there can be a lot of judgment that you bring up against that final piece that is, funnily enough, not really there when you're on the journey to creating it. And so, my personal enjoyment with art, and a lot of artists that I follow, is concept art for especially Disney films. It's something that I pore over. I have many, 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 like, art of this Disney movie book, or art of insert title here. So many of them, they're one of my favorite kind of series of books to collect, because I'm endlessly fascinated by all the different ways people see the same kind of prompt and how they deliver on that, and what parts of their imagination, takes them to this place. And especially if you get to see a whole series of that artist's work, how they've interpreted the same thing through a different, part of the lens that they see it through. I love seeing process. I love seeing the journey that someone took to get to the final place, because you get to reveal a lot about the thoughts, the inner working of that mind, the imagination of the person making it. I love when you can see the sketch of a person underneath the kind of finished, cleaned up rough draft, that you see that, maybe a hand was kind of down on the hip, but they move the hand up towards the face. And you think, why would you do that? Like, is that you've just decided that was a better expression, or you wanted to convey a different emotion? You can start to read between those lines and kind of get a better feeling for what the person is trying to communicate with the piece. And in art, we're essentially always communicating something. It doesn't have to mean a lot, but we're always showing someone something that doesn't necessarily always find words. There was no part of me today that was going to have a discussion with anyone about the idea of taking the inspiration of the ArtSnacks logo and Box Freestyle and just drawing that. The only way you were going to see what was going on in my head with that today is by showing you all of these sketches. And so that's what I did. I'm going to give you permission. Hopefully ArtSnacks agrees with me. I'm going to give you permission to post all of your work, like all of your sketches, all of your ideation, all of the times you brain dump into your sketchbook, all of these thoughts that, you know, maybe not all of them are worth spending 16 hours to create a finished piece on, but they're still thoughts you have, they're still great ideas that maybe someone else might be inspired by. I've seen tons of sketches that people, you know, don't even use in their final piece that I find even more fascinating to me than the final piece that they did, or there's more charm in a sketch because I can see all of that working. I mean, that's personal preference. I just really like that. But I'm just going to give you permission today to really share that part of your process and to share that as a part of your ArtSnacks challenge, to give the same kind of value to your process as you do to your finished pieces, because without the process you wouldn't get to the finished pieces. So they really do work in harmony, and I do think there's kind of equal value to both, especially for me anyway. If you feel like no one else wants to see your sketches, I want to see your sketches. Mostly so that I can get a better look at you and your imagination, how it works, how your brain works, and the kind of decisions that you make along the way. So that is what I've decided to do for my ArtSnacks challenge. You see, I did crack the ruler out and try some perspective. I'll be honest, I don't often use perspective, especially any kind of like legitimate like 2-point perspective. Even this I kind of fudged a little bit because I'm so rusty on it. It is something that I have a curiosity to learn more about, but my preference is to really draw faces and like feminine fashion figures and feminine faces. So there's not really much need to know about, you know, 2 and 3-point perspectives. But from time to time, I really do get taken away with, what's it called? Like urban sketching, architecture. And that really, I'm curious about that. It kind of fascinates me a little bit. But anyway, I wanted to let you know that my only 2 inspirations for this kind of process I wanted to share with you, all of these sketches, all of these ideas, was that I just let myself think ArtSnacks sticker or ArtSnacks logo, so the branding of ArtSnacks, and Box Freestyle. Those are the only things I put in my head. There was no brief I had to hit. I just had to elaborate on ideas. And I do this thing from time to time called sketch flicks, where I put on a movie and I will sketch all the way through it. And I know this about myself, I start really literal to begin with. So if you saw at the beginning of all of my little sketches, I actually just drew the ArtSnacks sticker like a bunch of times. I started putting a face on it. I got an idea to turn it into a person. What's it called when it's anamorphous? No. What do you call it? When you add human characteristics to things that don't have it. You know, there's a word for that, but I'm totally blanking on it. I tried to do that anyway, and try and bring in some of what I like to draw, which is, you know, feminine fashion faces. And at the moment, I'm being really inspired by mid-century retro type illustrations. So there's definitely got that kind of a vibe to it as well. And when I do sketch flicks, I usually find myself thinking more creatively as time goes on, and that's why when I'm sketching, I don't really sketch out one thing, I sketch out tons of things at a time, because once my brain's kind of active and my imagination's unlocking a little bit, I find all the extra good ideas kind of lurking at the back there. So I need some time to get through that, and I find that most of my better work happens about 15-20 minutes in. So I gave myself a bunch of time just to sit down and elaborate on the ideas that I was having. The ideas were kind of getting a little crazier. I don't know why I was trying to draw the box with the face on it. Like it seemed like I was trying to draw this massive version of the ArtSnacks Plus box with a face on it in the desert. I don't know where that came from. Probably the heat wave. I then really wanted to kind of make it some, you know, realistic character, and I like the idea of unfurling the pencil from that pretzel shape. Although the pretzel shape is the iconic kind of, you know, shape, so it was kind of hard to blend those two. But then I came up with this stick figure man who I figured was Mr. Box Freestyle, and ended up drawing him, and I think I was happy to end with him. This kind of, I guess to me, he's a bit of a 90s like street rap hip hopping type pencil. Or I think he's a bunch of pencils actually, I think he's 3 pencils. And to me, he's going to be Mr. Box Freestyle, and that's where I kind of ended up. You know, are all the ideas worth chasing down and devoting a fully finished piece to? No. Just like every sketchbook, you've got a ton of ideas that are just like the ones you had to get out to get to some better ones. But I think they're all together. All of the ideas put together, all of that process, all of that sketching, I think is just as valuable. as having a finished piece. And, you know, even though I don't have a real need to have this type of a character, you know, to submit for ArtSnacks Challenge, I do journal a lot. I do find ways to bring an artistic interpretation to the days that I have, and I can't say I wouldn't be tempted to, you know, make a little cleaned up version of this, print him out on some sticker paper, and use him to put in my journal every time I did some little ArtSnacks filming. I feel like that would be a good way for me to incorporate that into journaling. So that's where, you know, down the road, maybe I'll come back and visit some of those ideas for a certain reason. But for today, I just wanted to let you know, I would love to see your sketches. I would love to see your process. I think it is just as valuable to, you know, submit to your hashtag ArtSnacks Challenge as the final pieces. If you love something so much, you just have to see it as a final piece. I think go for it. Give yourself some time to let that imagination open up. And I am really excited to get a better look at what goes on in the back of your imagination inside those sketchbooks. So that's everything for today. I'll see you in a second for the outro. There we go. That is everything for August 2022 ArtSnacks Box Freestyle. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you would like to join ArtSnacks, you can do so with the code using James10 for 10% off. And please don't forget to share your work with us in the ArtSnacks community on the Mix and in social media with the hashtag ArtSnacks Challenge. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.